Hi, everybody. I'm Christine Haas. Welcome to the Alternative Access Fireside. This is the place where we pull back the curtains for our privileged investors to get an inside look into the world-class entrepreneurs and operators we allocate capital into. Joined today, we have Managing Director Sal Buscemi. He is also the Chief Investment Officer of Dandrew Partners, and Carl Weissman, who's a veteran of the biotechnical industry with more than 2 decades of experience that spans investing, funding, and managing emerging biotech companies as well. Gentlemen, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
So everybody, the entire world right now is talking about COVID-19 and the impacts that have been underway across the economy, our healthcare systems. But what I just love about what both of you have been doing is really talking to those who are on the forefront of technology, trying to figure out how certain drugs can actually emerge to help fight infectious disease. Carl, I wanted to bring you in. You're going to tell us about an idea for using important cancer drugs that reverse infectious disease. At least it appears that way, right?
So there's a new class of cancer drugs out there that are immune modulators, and famous ones are like Keytruda and Opdivo. And what they do is they ramp up the immune system to kill specifically the cancer cells. So there is a theory that perhaps if you can get them to target the cancer cells, that you would also be able to work on being able to target infectious disease, viruses, things like that.
Carl, one thing that you relayed to me, and I think it's really important to point out, is that there's a huge difference between a vaccine and a treatment. And this type of research is constantly underway, but it's in full throttle now. It's, just something that we need to keep in mind, correct?
Yeah, I think that for some reason, there's a real misunderstanding out there about, what a vaccine is and what a treatment is. A vaccine is lovely for people who haven't been exposed to the disease. Kind of like when you're a kid, you get MMR, measles, mumps, rubella vaccination, and then you don't ever get the disease, right? But in this situation, you're talking about millions of people who are getting this disease, and a vaccine for them is useless.
And Sal, I know you told me earlier this morning about how exciting it is to have people like Carl who are on the front line of this, but most importantly, right now, an Ebola drug that might be something that could be used in the circulation of COVID treatment.
Yeah, we like working with these world-class pedigreed entrepreneurs. We like investing into them only because they've done it before and they know what they're doing. That's really what we're looking at right here, is trying to really bring to our investors and really bringing back pulling back the curtain, so to speak, to show people exactly what it is that we're doing and how a lot of their participation, frankly, as investors, is really making a huge impact on this fight right now to fight this pandemic. And so we started at the top and we identified the world-class, the best leaders, most pedigreed entrepreneurs we can find, and then allocate capital into them. And the purpose of this is really to show our investors the impact that they're actually making throughout this process, working with guys like Carl, who actually, are on the front lines, on the vanguard of really finding cures and opportunities to really fight these threats to humanity, which they really are today.
And Carl, as you mentioned, is a perfect example of that. You were telling me more about this Ebola drug. Can you explain where it's at and how it could have some help in the COVID fight?
Sure. There's an approved drug called remdesivir that's marketed by Gilead, and it is now there's a theory that it could also work against COVID-19, and so they're testing that in the labs right away. The advantage here is that it's already been proven safe in a phase 1 trial, and it was proven effective against Ebola. So if they can show that it works against COVID-19, they won't have to go through all that. They'll be able to go straight to market, which is very different than a vaccine, because even right now, if someone starts a vaccine trial, they're going to go through a phase 1 to get the safety proven, and then they're going to have to go do a phase 2 to show that it actually works. So, as Tony Fauci and the other guys, the talking heads on TV have been saying, you're at least a year or two from having a vaccine. And that's great, but you are now closing the barn door after the horse is gone. So a treatment is really what's needed. And a vaccine will be very useful sometime in the future, but right now we need treatments.
Hey, Carl, can I ask a question real quick, if that's all right? With everything that's happening right now, do you think the temperament towards, I wouldn't say temperament, but maybe the conventions, the long drawn-out conventions of bringing drugs and products to the FDA approval and its counterparty in Europe, do you think that is going to be compressed going forward because humanity needs it, quite frankly?
Well, they do have processes to fast track, is what they call it at the FDA.
Correct.
A drug, but even then, you still have to show it's safe, right? And you can't shorten that trial because you can't have anything out there that's not safe for patients. You might be able to fast track it through a phase 2 and prove that it has efficacy and get it out there, but you're still more than a year out, even under the fastest circumstances. And they've been trying over and over. I mean, as I said, Tony Fauci, who's the head of NIAID, the National Allergy and Infectious Disease group with the federal government, even he is saying, look, guys, it's going to be a long time before we have this vaccine. No matter how fast we do it through the FDA, it has to be safe. It has to work.
On that point, though, and I don't want to take over the show, but I think this is important because a lot of our investors are coming to us and they're asking this. We're actually going to be having Harry Gruber talk to us not too soon, and and one of his companies we invested in went public about 3 years ago now, and he's working on this too, on this fight as well. And one of the discussions he and I are talking.
I can't hear Sal.
Yeah, I think we lost you, Sal. Are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me now?
Yeah. Try that one
How
more
far
time.
did I get before I have to repeat?
You were just talking about our upcoming guest.
Oh, Harry Gruber. So Harry Gruber brought a company, Talkogen, that went public back in 2017 that we invested in. And one of the things that we were talking about when we were doing our due diligence with that a while back was this whole right to try. And I think that's a word that's coming up now. I know that there's treatments, and you're starting to see that on certain pages. Google, it's like, what is right to try? What am I going to do? People are doing some sort of insane things at home with some homeopathic remedies. What I'm asking is do you think that with everything going on with this, that you're going to start to see maybe people start to be a little more open with the right to try? There's going to be more education out there. There's going to be more of an effort to maybe make people sort of become more of the process to help facilitate, the management of these viruses and diseases.
Well, there will always be people out there who are going to suggest things like, drinking a gallon of apple cider vinegar every day. But, if things aren't proven, they're not proven. And, there are alternative medicines you can use. But, until someone comes up with some sort of data that is actual, proven in the clinic data, I think people have to be very wary of any of these homeopathic, ideas. It's not all that safe.
But what I want to talk about is, do you think that you're going to see a lot more initiatives for the right to try? Not with homeopathics and the people doing weird things, what they do at home, but I'm thinking more or less more established drug companies that might have something like a chloroquine or something similar to that, things that have been developed. Maybe some of the people on the front line have been taking some things too, but do you see that as being part of the progression now of getting drugs to market faster? Do you think anything out as a result of this?
Things that are already approved, like chloroquine, which has been, getting a lot of play these days. Obviously, people can try it, and if you can get your doctor to write you a script, then that's great. But it's not the most responsible thing to do, and it's frankly risky. Right to try, sure. I don't want you to die. Sure, try anything you can, but be careful, please.
Got it.
Yeah, and that's a really good point. One thing that I want to bring up too, that I've known from working with both of you, is from an investment standpoint, why it's so necessary to invest at this time in the medical world. And I say that because the FDA has so much, basically the back work that they have to do. But when you are investing and you can find ideal startup companies that are at the forefront of this, it goes farther than other times when things are just basically pulled back with bureaucracy. Can you talk a little bit more about that, Carl?
Sure. I mean, I ran a thing called Accelerator for 11 years in Seattle. It was the first thing called an accelerator in the world. Basically, we went around the world looking for the very best emerging biotechnologies, brought them to Seattle, turned them into companies, and frankly ran them with my management team. And we were looking for the next generation of exciting therapeutics. But there are other people doing this. And this whole, Keytruda and Opdivo came out of, an academic lab, and somebody just won a Nobel for it. So it's, these new sort of breakthrough technologies that happen are wonderful. But these drugs, even something like Keytruda and Opdivo, they still had to go through clinical trials. They still had to do safety. They still had to do efficacy. They had to do phase 3 trials with large populations. This is years, okay? Biotech investors, if they understand the biotech world, biotech investors realize if you put in money in pre-clinically, meaning they haven't gotten to the clinic yet, you're looking at 5 to 7 years before you're getting to market. You're hoping that you get acquired earlier after like a phase 2, after you've shown the drug has efficacy. So it's not a short road, and you have to be a patient investor.
Well, it's not a matter of just being a patient investor. You have to be a privileged investor. I mean, this is not something that people can go into. I think I want to make a huge discretion, let me say that again. I want to make sure that I make a huge corollary here between just investing in biotech and investing in other things. When we look at biotech is much more established. You have products that are being developed, that are being brought to market, and quite frankly are being scooped up by pharmaceutical companies who are sitting on lots of cash. That's the drive right there for most of the biotech. It is not considered frontier like maybe Bitcoin, crypto, the cannabis industry, the marijuana, the pot stocks. There are no real leaders in that industry. That's still more frontier as far as I'm concerned. But when you're looking at biotech and you're looking at building upon medicines right now, especially at the time when people need it, it's become more of a defensive investment more than anything else. And that's the reason why we went into this a long time ago with my other partner, Bill Workmister, is because it's actually being seen as being more defensive today. It is a wealth creator. It is a huge wealth creator, but it's only for the privileged investors who can afford the discretion to do so. I just want to make sure I'm clear on that.
Right, and I'll go even further with that, Sal. The great thing about biotech is if you're going to make a lot of money by investing in biotech, accrete wealth by doing that, that runs in parallel with patient outcomes. Companies that are developing drugs and the drugs don't work, the investors don't make any money. So if you're making money at biotech, that means patient outcomes are getting better. And that's the whole point, right? And for an entrepreneur within biotech, they want to see their drug get to the market. But for an investor, they should also want it to get to the market, because if it doesn't, they're not making any money.
Yeah, of course. And if there's no money, then there's no impact, and then there's no lives to save. And that's really what we want to show to people is, look, you invested in this company. Excuse me, Todd. Sorry. You invested in this company. However, what are you telling your friends about? How much of an impact has this really made? It's not really about the money today, believe it or not. A lot of the families that we invest on behalf or invest with us, they're looking to make much more of an impact. So using an example, maybe of something that we were discussing before, maybe not here another time, they want to know if this drug goes into production, or if it gets into the right hands, it has the potential to save, I don't know, maybe 500,000 lives, maybe 1 million lives that might have been not salvaged due to the fact of this pandemic going on. That's what that's what a lot of investors like to feel and see is like, what's the real impact to humanity?
And that's what I was going to ask. I was going to bring up something that I know you both have been excited when you've been able to see that the money actually goes somewhere. Because sometimes when you invest, of course, anybody wants to see the end result and where things are going to head with the investment. And sometimes it takes, as if you're going through the FDA, a long time. What you're telling us is that you were excited when you found out that when you got money somewhere, you can fast track it in a way by going through some of these other investment funds.
Are you talking to me?
Either one of you.
Yeah, I think, for me, you're not ever you have to get lucky to be able to fast track to the clinic. You have to be a very astute investor who understands what sorts of things are going to get fast tracked or get orphan drug designations or things like that. And that's what an astute investor should be doing. And that's why an astute investor is listening to people who are experts in biotech and experts in clinical and regulation to know, okay, if I put money in this and it works, will I get a quicker return than if I go through something that's, that's a long-term clinical path? And, that's sort of the judgment that needs to be made and should be made by the people who are guiding you in your investments.
Something I interviewed somebody who works in, of course, Wall Street, and talked about how investors currently right there are calling and saying, oh my God, what happened to my retirement? And they're freaking out. And they don't have the wherewithal to really feel balanced and secure right now. It's a different theme from what I'm getting from your investors. They're feeling solid because they know that the money that they've put out with you and will continue to do so in the healthcare world, it's some of the best investments that can be made right now. Sal, can you mention a little bit more about why you were telling me that was kind of the theme you're hearing from your investors?
Because all of a sudden overnight, 2 weeks ago, biotech became a defensive investment. There's things that happen in the markets that a lot of people don't realize, but a lot of things move in sympathy with each other. So just by the fact that we're touched on certain things in this biotech industry, which is quite frankly something a lot of people don't go near unless they're very sophisticated and they have very sophisticated teams to do so and do it deftly like we do. However, all of a sudden people got interested because everybody understands that a cure, and I'll use this as the most graphic example. Everybody knows the story of how Viagra was invented. It was really invented for another purpose before it became the marketable purpose that it is today. So there's this belief among investors, especially wealthy investors, that, hey, there's a lot of cross-pollination that can happen because of a lot of the parallels that have been developed between both oncology devices, whatever you can think of in that subset, to what we're looking at today as far as viral management and containment. Would you say that's fair, Carl?
Yeah, I think that's completely fair. And it's interesting that you call it a defensive investment. You mentioned Bill Workmeister, one of your partners. Bill showed me some data that, contrary to people's belief about venture capital, that you make money quicker and you make more money in tech. It turns out that's not true. You are actually getting exits faster at greater step-ups in biotech than you are in tech.
Okay.
And our investors are proof of that. Thank you.
Yes. And now for our final round, Sal, you want to just leave us with 2 minutes of a thought?
I would urge people who are listening to this so that I'm already starting to get the text messages and the personal things, looking for stock tips and all that kind of stuff. If you are a novice investor and you're not a professional investor, I would urge you to seek competent advice from the best-in-class professionals and operators you can find before submitting $1 into any of this. There's a lot more that goes on it besides just a nice fireside here, and we're talking about maybe some companies. But I would say use discretion, use your head, because there's going to be a lot of people, I think, who are going to come out of the woodwork that we've already seen before. But you're going to see some interesting things, I think, that are going to take advantage of investors who are probably going to be they're going to be very hopeful and meaningful in their investment. But I could see a lot of frauds propagating as a result of this.
But absolutely, the history of biotech, there are a lot of frauds out there and a lot of people taking investor money and then just, padding their own salaries, to be frank.
Yeah, that's you get these things that are like and I hate to say it, but they're like labor boxes sometimes. It's like they've only been raising enough money only to keep the salaries alive, but no progress has been made. So yeah,
Right.
there's stories I'm sure Carl and I can continue on, and that's probably a subject for another time where we can bring in our other partner. But Christine, that's all I have to say is just look out, make sure you know who you're investing alongside with, and do the due diligence on them that you would do as you would a jealous ex-lover.
And Carl, I know I just want to leave you with the last word. You mentioned when we were talking about another fund related to cancer, a lot of the science that's behind this and the work that's being done. And so many people, I think, don't realize the day-to-day work that is underway, whether it's cancer and certainly with COVID right now. You gave me such optimism when I heard your insight. Can you tell me a little bit more about that right now as we leave our viewers?
Yeah, I mean, what's really going on and what you have to really have a lot of knowledge about is what's happening in laboratories. There are some brilliant academic researchers out there working on incredible things that will save lives. And as long as you have investors behind them, those things can happen, but you have to be careful. So, you are talking about impacting many people's lives who have diseases that they're going to die from or be debilitated from, and it's going to change the rest of their lives. And if you can offer something for those people, and you do it, if you do the right research and you do the right development with investors behind you, then you can make a mark in it.
Yeah. Sal, I just think that sums it up for us. I really appreciate you being on today, and Carl, all of your knowledge, really appreciate it. Gentlemen, stay safe, stay healthy, and keep, giving us the great advice on investment.
Thank you, Christine.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Sal and Christine.
And thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Alternative Access Fireside. We look forward to seeing you for the next episode. Have a great day.